Good morning, everyone. Oh, I feel like it's been forever since I've been live on the Patreon, but I'm so happy to be back. And we are going to work on our August tutorial, which is the mermaid bubble photo. One thing I wanted to mention to you guys is that I started a new little adventure starting t-shirts and mugs in my Etsy shop. So if you want to go check that out, this is an example. Shoot, edit, caffeine, repeat. It's super cute. I love it. And there's mugs that also have the same saying on it. So go check those out and see if you like those. You do have a new 10 to 20% off in my shop, so go check that out. All right, let's get started on this tutorial. So I have two photos here that I took in PEI when I was there visiting, and I took this one, but I forgot to take one with this backdrop of just the rock. So I have this one here. I'm going to use this rock to put into this sky. Here we go. Let's just select our subject here. See how it selects her, if it does. Let's try our content aware fill. So it did an okay job here. So I'm actually going to merge this down, and then I'll just use my patch tool. So we will go, let's do a select subject on this one. Okay, but I'm gonna grab a bit more of just the sand and stuff with my quick selection tool here. Okay, so I will drag and drop this into my other image here, just to clean up the background. And I'm going to turn this to a smart object, so I'll right click, convert to a smart object. I'm just going to lower the opacity on it, hit Control T to resize it so that it will match with this part here. Enter. Bring that back up. And there's like way too much orange, or like, yeah, way too much red in it. So I'm just gonna do a color balance and right click and make it a clipping mask. And I'm just gonna add some cyan and blue, and maybe a little magenta. Okay, that matches a little better. So then I'm going to put a layer mask on this. So I'm going to hit this little button down here with my black brush. With my black brush, I'm just going to blend this first at 100% to get rid of those lines. Oops. And then I'll just lower that opacity and blend it in around this rock here. All right, so far that's our background. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is bring in my model here. So we will again go to our properties panel. I just unlocked this layer. I'm going to hit select subject again. And then I'm going to go to my select and mask. Actually, that mask looks pretty good. Drag and drop her into the photo. But we actually want her on top and unclipped, so it will release that clipping mask. Then we will convert her to a smart object. And I'm just gonna go Control T to resize her so that she's in the right size. So you can imagine she'll be something like that. Okay, and then I'm gonna put a layer mask on her and add 100% brush. And this is gonna be a hard brush. Now I'm gonna open up the Pixel Squid app and bring in that tail. So we'll put it on high resolution. We're gonna turn the shadows off. And oops, I forgot to turn it. We need to kind of turn it in the direction and angle that our subject is at. Maybe I made her too big, so I'm just going to resize her a little. Okay, and the other thing that you can do with the mermaid tail is, because I want the hips to line up a little better, we are gonna go Edit and then Puppet Work on the tail. And I'll grab my pen here. So I'm just going to, I like the way that is, and we'll put one here because I don't really want that to change. But I do want to just bring the hip up a bit. And that's lining up better, for sure. Okay, so our subject is too dark, I think, too contrasty. So we're gonna go brightness and contrast and clip that to her, and we're gonna bring the brightness down and the contrast way down. Okay, that's better. And mermaid tail, we're gonna add color balance on it. We're gonna have a little bit more magenta. Oops, I forgot to clip it. A little more magenta, maybe a little more red. And then we also need to do a brightness and contrast on the tail as well. So I'm just creating that brightness and contrast layer and then clipping it to the tail alone. And the brightness needs to come down. Okay, something like that. So I believe I had cropped it to be a different size in the original. But yeah, we have the background to clean up. Healing brush, that's what I'm looking for. The healing brush. A headband would work so much better. Okay, anyway, I will select this with my quick selection. I'm just gonna unlock the layer. Just quickly grab this. Now I'm just gonna do a real rough selection here of this. And then drag and drop it in, and I'll clean up the selection later. So we'll just grab this, bring it in. And we want it to be over our mermaid. Okay, so Control T. Oh, sorry, cancel that first. We want to actually convert it to a smart object. Now we will go Control T and resize it to fit her head. Turn it a little. Something like that. Looks good. Now again with this one, it's like too much contrast, so we're gonna make a brightness and contrast layer, and we'll create a clipping mask to that layer, and I'm just going to take the contrast down and actually brighten it up a little bit, because it's, yeah, the contrast was too much, but it was also a little too dark. So that's good right there. Okay, so we basically have our mermaid put together here. So I think I'm gonna crop it, because this is what I did at the original. I made it a 8x10 size, and I just kind of brought it over here. I thought about the rule of thirds, and putting your subject within either this corner, this corner, this corner, or this corner is going to create a more interesting like design. So the next thing we want to do is I'm going to bring in the bubble and the fish and the water and just like get all of the stock in, and then I can worry about making them all match. So here's the bubble I used. So we'll bring that one in next. So we always want to change these pixel squids to high resolution and turn the shadows off. I like to paint my own shadows in. It just helps make it look more realistic, because you want to match up the lighting. So if the lighting is different than the shadow that they put in pixel squid, it's not gonna look right. So I like to match them up. And plus this one's floating. We want it to look like it's floating, not like it's sitting in her hands. So I'll make the bubble. I think I had it kind of like this, maybe a little smaller. And we'll hit enter there. And we'll bring underneath the bubble, we're gonna bring in that fish. I had a few different fishes in here. I think I liked the blue one. Yeah, this one. So high resolution, turn the shadows off. And go Control T on the little fish. Oh, you know what? I forgot to switch it around. So we want to actually change the perspective. So once we want it to be looking at her. Maybe like that. Okay, and we can also, when we hit Control T and resize him, I think I'm gonna just turn it so it's like looking upward a little bit more at her. So put the little fish in the bubble. I'm just gonna zoom in here. Okay, we want him to be looking up a little bit more. Maybe make him slightly bigger. We'll just hit enter. And the next thing we want to do is bring in the splashes. So we hit add new object. We want to add in water splashes. I'm pretty sure I had some splashes here. Yes. So again, turn those off. Resize these splashes. Kind of change the angle of it a bit. and add a new object. We're gonna add in this magical splash. How do I want to place it? Maybe like this. Okay. So I kind of want, I'm gonna probably add 2 of these. Yeah, we'll add 2. So I'll just copy it, and I'm going to turn that top layer off for a second, and this one we're going to add the layer mask, and I'm just going to paint off some of it here. So I like the way it's curving around like that, and then we'll turn this one on and resize it. And we actually want this to be behind the soap bubble. So we drag that down, put it behind the soap bubble, and we're gonna have this one coming like around it, up, okay? So then we will put the layer mask on there and paint off the bottom. Could probably keep some of it in behind, just lower the brush opacity here. Okay, that looks cool. We'll do one more of the splashes. There was this one here. Control T, just resize it. Want a little more like water splashes up top here. Now what I want to do is put a bit of water inside the bubble, like she's got water in it for the fish. What it looks like on a different, oops, not screen, multiply. That might work. Inside there, inside the bubble. Probably too dark, but we can maybe lower the opacity here. Okay, so I want to actually put this water one, where's the fish? I have it behind the bubble. So this is the fish. Okay. Yeah. So we want, and what's this one? Okay. So that looks good. We could probably darken now that the water is actually behind the bubble. We can maybe bring that opacity back up a bit. So yeah, I had some bubbles. Now it might have been from Pixel Squid. So I had, if I go back here, I had all of these bubbles. And then because they're all in the foreground, I'm just gonna go blur, and then I Gaussian blur on those bubbles. Maybe around 10. Let's do 15. She is still a little darker than the tail. So I'm just gonna go back into the brightness and contrast here, and I might bump the contrast up a little bit on the tail just to add that shadow here, because she is being backlit. You can see the sun rays up here. She's being backlit, so of course, she'll have a highlight on this side and along the tail, and a shadow on this side and down the tail. That also means that because this rock, you can see the shadow under the rock coming out this way a little bit, which means we need that shadow under the tail, or sorry, a layer underneath. We're just going to call this tail shadow. So we have our tail shadow layer, and we are going to turn that to multiply in the layers up here. We are going to change that to multiply, and we will pick a dark color. So I'm going to pick like a dark color of this rock. So I'll hit Alt and just kind of select that. So it's not quite black, it's like a really dark red. And we will get our paintbrush. It's got to be a normal soft brush. And we're just gonna put the opacity down to like 5%. To start with, we want it a little bigger. So, well, the tail, yes, that's right. So we're just gonna paint underneath this tail here. We'll paint on there, 5%. And it will, because her knee is kind of like going over the edge here of this rock, her shadow will go kind of on the side right in here. There's lots of different ways to do shadows. I just prefer to paint them in and just kind of build it up, because like that's just my preference. But there's lots of other ways you can do shadows. Alright, so now I'm just gonna keep making my brush smaller, and where her knee is touching on the rock, it's gonna get pretty dark. Just like down in here. So you can see it down in this photo. Let me just zoom in a little bit. With the rock, the shadows, they flare out a little bit. So they lighten, they get lighter as they go away from the subject, and really dark when they get in close to the subject. So I am just trying to build it up with my brush. So as you can see, her tail goes up, so the light would still be hitting the rock just underneath here, but it would cast like a little bit of a shadow along this way. Or gear, anything like that. All right, so for the tail, I'm just going to click on it, and then I'm gonna add another layer that will be clipped to it. Just right here. There's the layer that I just clipped to the tail layer. And again, we're adding shadow, so we want to put this layer mask to, this layer to multiply, and we'll say shadow. I am having a good day. Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. Shadow. All right, so let's go to my brush. And again, I'm just gonna have a really soft brush, and it's just gonna be at 5%. So at 5%, really light. I'm actually gonna select a dark tone in the tail this time. So it's gonna be more of like a dark blue. If I can get, there we go. So dark tone, and I'm just gonna match up the shadow from her belly here and just kind of bring it down. I feel like her highlights are pretty good here. I don't know if I really need to touch up that, but we do need to kind of get this looking more like it's actually attached to her. And let's get the, so I'm going to select the tail layer, the tail and the mermaid layer. Control. Actually, we're going to go tail and then hit shift. But we want to merge the other layer that we have here. I don't want to merge the crown yet because I have to do some work on it underneath this area. So I'm not going to merge that yet. Yeah, I think I can merge it right now. So let's do that. So we're just going to right click and say merge layers here at the bottom. Okay, so now when I turn this on and off, my mermaid and the tail are connected. And we are going to just use our patch tool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it to destination. Actually, let's try source. Let's try source. So I'm just going to grab some of these here and move it up a bit. Oh, no, it has to be destination. Sorry, destination. I was right. So I'm going to move that up. And I don't mind that it's blending like her skin color into the tail because I think that makes it look pretty realistic in that way. Oops, I did the wrong one. So move this up here. Okay, so I'm gonna put a layer mask on her and start cleaning up the selection of her. I don't like this big bump at the back because the outfit was a little too big for her, so I'm just gonna paint that out with my black brush. I'm gonna make my brush pretty hard here. Oh, my brush, not my stamp tool. Brush, make it a hard brush. And just clean this bit up. All right, so she's definitely looking more blended. I'm just gonna paint a little shadow underneath the crown on her head. And then we definitely need to clean up the layer mask on that crown. So with my hard brush, like around 85% at 100% opacity, we're gonna zoom in and clean this up. I'm gonna go back to the crown shadow here and make my brush soft again. Bring it down to 5% opacity. And just going to put a little bit underneath this part of the crown. The crown needs a little bit of shadow. So we'll clip a layer to that and say shadow and put this to multiply and zoom in and paint a little bit of a shadow on there as well. I might just turn the opacity on that down a little. There we we go, like 90%. Okay, so with the fish, I might just darken all of it up a little bit. So I'm gonna go to a brightness and contrast layer, and I'm gonna right click and make a clipping mask to the whole fish layer. And I'm just gonna bring the brightness down slightly on that. A little bit. And maybe the contrast up a little bit. Now I'm going to add a shadow and highlight layer. So we will go multiply on the shadow layer and rename this one highlights. And put this one to overlay. Okay. So my shadow, I'm gonna pick like a dark blue of her tail. And just zoom in here. And I'm just going to paint like a little bit on the water part. And on this fish here. Okay, and then the highlights, I'm just going to use a white brush, and I'm going to paint a little bit over top here in this water. What is that from? Oh. Okay, I got a little bit of cleaning up to do on this layer too. So let's put a layer mask on the whole fish group. And you can see there's like this weird thing going on right here. So I'm going to paint that out with a hard brush at 100%. I feel like the crown might need a little bit of a highlight layer. So I'm gonna create a clipping mask layer. I have it on normal. We want to change this to overlay. And we need a soft brush. And we need it at like 10%. All right. So just on the sides of the crown where the highlights are touching is where I'm painting this, because her highlight on her face is quite bright. So we just want to match that. Flatten. So I just right clicked on the background layer and I'm going to say flatten image. And I like just finishing up my photos with it. So this is kind of like a cool beachy tone. Let's see what the cool matte tone looks like. All of these you can adjust the opacity with. I kind of like the cool matte tone actually, so I'm going to keep that in. And with these actions, after you play them, you do have to flatten each image. You have to flatten after each action you play. The next thing I'm going to do is my Photoshop with sharpen. Sorry, frequency separation with sharpen. And each one that needs a little bit of instruction comes with instruction on these. So, alright, so for the blur layer, you want to select parts of her skin with your quick selection tool, your lasso tool, and I'm just gonna go, I'm not gonna go around the lines, like over the lines of her arm, for example. We don't want to blur that part. We just want to blur like big chunks of her skin here. So we're gonna go up to filter and then blur, Gaussian blur. I usually do this around 7%. And the gray layer, you're going to take your spot healing brush and just go over any like blemishes. She doesn't really have any that you want to get rid of. You could get rid of this hair that's in her face. And with the sharpen, we're going to take our brush, we're going to go back to normal and at 100% with your white brush. I like to just paint the features And it's making it really dark though. So I'm going to try to stick to just the eyelashes on this one. I don't want her to have a dark patch under her eye. And I like to just paint like the features of the face sharper. Do the creamy skin foundation. And it's just going to brighten up her skin. Again, we're painting this all on at 100% with a very soft brush. So I just like to brighten up the highlights. And then we'll add some blush on her cheeks. A painterly vignette. And then I also like to play around with my artistic dodge and burn brush. And what I like to do with this one is just really enhance those highlights. So typically I'm going right into the really small features with this, and it's just going to add that really painted look. And then we will go into the artistic burn brush and do the same, but just enhance those shadows. Maybe a hazy matte. Let's just see what that looks like. Yeah, but not so strong. Let's bring that down to like 15. Maybe 20. Kind of make it look a little dreamy. What does the pop-up blue look like? Let's just see what that looks like. I think that this is pretty intense, but you can always turn the opacity on any of these actions down, of course. So I like to paint them on at 100% and then just like play around with... Oops, I have the wrong brush. Brush. Oh yeah, like that's super intense, but we can always lower, of course, lower the opacity. I don't think I'm actually going to put it on her tail, so let's just bring that back. But it would be good in the sky. I feel like it would be good in the sky. Bring out some of that blue. Keep it. I think I'm going to keep it at around 40%. And you could even add it in the water too. Just make this kind of all blue and like that orange color. It's kind of cool. Okay, and then I always like to with these really artsy ones, I will add the artisan oil, which kind of softens everything. But this might be a little intense for this one, so we can lower the effect a bit. And with the paint effect, I always paint it off of features and stuff. So like off her eyes and face. And it just makes it look really soft and painted. Okay, and then I always sharpen it again for print. So it's still going to keep like that soft painted look, but it'll just like sharpen up the details a little. After I'm done an edit, I always add a little bit of green, and it just helps like hide any like things I missed, or just tie it all back together. Photo here. And go up to the top. So this is what we started with this morning. This is just after I did all those skin retouching, and then this is the finished. So just really subtle from here to here, but you can see there's more blue in the sky. I will see you guys in the next live, and thank you all for being here. Bye.